The White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, is defending President Trump against accusations that the president was insensitive to a grieving military family. In a rare public appearance, the retired four-star general called to mind the death of his own son, who was killed in Afghanistan. White House correspondent Mark Irons reports. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Wyatt. Those accusations are coming from Democratic Congresswoman Frederica Wilson of Florida, who says she listened in to the phone call between the president and the widow of a fallen service member. General Kelly expressed his shock that she did that. In a moving testimony, Kelly said the nation no longer holds things to be sacred, including the dignity of life.
I was stunned when I came to work yesterday morning and brokenhearted at what I saw a member of Congress doing.
White House Chief of Staff John Kelly wasn't holding back Thursday. Kelly admonished a congresswoman who told reporters she listened to President Trump's phone call with the widow of a fallen soldier.
It stuns me that a member of Congress would have listened in on that conversation. Absolutely stuns me. And I thought at least that was sacred. You know, when I was a kid growing up, a lot of things were sacred in our country. Women were sacred and looked upon with great honor. That's obviously not the case anymore, as we see from recent cases. Life, the dignity of life, was sacred. That's gone. Religion, that seems to be gone as well.
During an emotional statement in the White House briefing room, Kelly told reporters he advised Trump not to make the calls to the families of fallen service members.
If you elect to call a family like this, it is about the most difficult thing you could imagine. There's no perfect way to make that phone call. My first recommendation was he not do it because it's not the phone call that parents, family members are looking forward to.
Representative Frederica Wilson told CNN Tuesday evening that Trump told the widow,
"Well, I guess he knew what he signed up for, but I guess it still hurts."
Sergeant LaDavid Johnson was among the 4 U.S. soldiers killed by enemy fire in the October 4th ambush. Kelly prefaced his criticism of Wilson by drawing on his own experiences losing a son, which he rarely discusses publicly.
Typically, the only phone calls the family receives are the most important phone calls they can imagine, and that is from their buddies. In my case, hours after my son was killed, his friends were calling us from Afghanistan, telling us what a great guy he was.
Again, Chief of Staff John Kelly rarely addresses the media publicly like this. Representative Wilson says she feels sorry for General Kelly. She expressed sympathy for the loss of his own son, but she said Kelly can't go on TV and lie. Meanwhile, the president is referring to the congresswoman as wacky. Wyatt.
Correspondent Mark Irons reporting from the White House. Joining us now is Philip Wegmann, commentary writer for the Washington Examiner. So, Philip, welcome back. You wrote about this controversy. You know, presidents have been consoling military families throughout history. Why has this just now become so political?
Well, the fact that we're even debating this really shows how petty our politics have become, because right now there's a widowed wife in Florida who has a 6-year-old, she has a toddler, and she's got a baby on the way. And we're debating this as if it's something that we should be discussing in the public sphere. It's just pathetic, frankly.
John Kelly got really emotional when talking about this personal experience, as we saw when he's talking about losing his child to war. Do you think his words were vital to this conversation right now?
Well, I think that Donald Trump did his best to describe the conversation that he had with this woman. And I think that he tried to console her. But you really did need someone like General Kelly, someone who has been in the military and understands how to have these conversations with people who have lost loved ones. He lost his own son. He had a credibility to discuss this that I don't think the president did. And I think that he's the only one with moral credibility right now, because when you look at the Florida Democrat, Representative Wilson, what was her response to this entire controversy? She told a local news team, she laughed it off. She said that the controversy over the Gold Star family made her a rock star. Those are her words, and it's just incredibly sad.
Yeah, it has been. It's been pretty upsetting for a lot of people. You know, the president, aside from that, you know, the president had some wins this week. He and Senator Mitch McConnell had a positive meeting this week at the White House. The Senate passed a budget that could open the way to tax reform, which could be a huge win for the president. So do you think in that sense that this is a turning point this week for the GOP?
Well, I think that congressional leaders certainly hope so. If they don't get tax reform done, then this is an existential threat to them, because if it's do or die. They either cut taxes or they lose their majority. What are they going to tell voters when they go back to districts? well, we're different from Democrats somehow. They didn't pass a health care reform, and right now tax reform is struggling. So this is it. They have to get it done.
What's the timeline here? What's the deadline for getting this stuff done?
Well, so the administration, they still want to do something with healthcare, which is incredibly ambitious, but the deadline here is actually now. You have a lot of these members going back to their districts, starting their campaigns for 2018. The Senate primaries are already almost in full swing, so this is the last gasp. You either get this done before Thanksgiving, which is what the White House is projecting, or you probably don't get it done at all.
Yeah. Time is definitely running short. Philip Wegmann, commentary writer for the Washington Examiner. Thanks so much for your analysis.
Thank you for having me.